Hi and welcome to this video, which is going to be a paint video for my Sisters of Battle Canoness. You would have seen in the review video how I built her, and I've left her off of her base for ease of painting the inside of the robes, and I've left her backpack off again for ease of painting the back of the robes. And the first thing I'm actually going to do is just mix up a weak solution of black paint, Abaddon Black, mainly to go over the whole of the miniature and make sure that there is an flat, even coverage all over her. The only exception to this is that I have put a Mournfang Brown, thin Mournfang Brown layer on the base just for now, simply because that's the base colour that it's going to be before I start dry brushing it. So I shall get on with that. So now that my main undercoat has gone down and I've got an even coverage throughout, my first colour is going to be Galvalback Red from the Citadel range, and this is going to be for the underside of the Canoness's robes. So the underside of her robes here, and just underneath this bit. Now I'm not going to go too mad just here because it's not really that visible, but it's going to get done just for completeness. The underside of the robes, which are this side here, and I'm going to fill in just what would be the representation for the inside of her sleeves. And then obviously on this side as well. And once I've got 2, maybe 3 coats and good coverage, I'll then go on to the next stage. Now that the deep red has been done, I'm going to address her outer side of the robes, and that's just going to be Mephiston Red. Lay it on to get a nice good coverage. Again, it's been watered down to provide a good coverage without obscuring detail, and literally that's just going to go on the outer robes. So I've done her robes as far as I'm going to take them for now, and what I need to do at this moment in time is just go round the mini, and I need to just block in her black armour again to cover up any overspill that I've done with the red. And then once I've done that, I will use Dryad Bark to paint her corset and her gloves. And then from there, it will be Lead Belcher on as the base for the sword and her plasma pistol. So a little bit of black first. Cover up any mistakes you made. Slight variation to what I was going to do. I'm just going to use some Mournfang Brown because there's a single pouch that my Canoness has on her waist, and I just want to paint that in before I go in with the Dryad Bark on the corset. dryad bark now for, as I said, the corset that she wears and her gloves. So the corset is an underbust corset, and just try and only take it up to the line just underneath where her breasts would be. If you do just go over slightly, then it's not a problem, because you can always go back in with some Abaddon black and tidy that up. I'm also going to use this for her gloves. So I'm going to paint the whole of her sword in lead belcher, including the hilt, although I do want the hilt to be a different colour. I'm painting it in lead belcher so that it has, when I paint it with the brassy gold colour that I want to use, it will come out slightly more vibrant. So as we can see, I have added in the lead belcher, and basically I've done any decorative trim that was on her weapons. I've done the side grills on her helmet. I've also done the backpack trim as well, and that will remain lead belcher. What I'm going to do now is use some Ulthuan Grey to put down as a base coat for the white parts. So this will be the front of her helmet and the fleur-de-lis on her backpack. And it's also, she's got some laurel wreaths around her helmet, which I'm going to paint as well. So the Adepta Sororitas helmets have a kind of like a mask on the helmet itself surrounding the eyes. And so I'm going to lay down the base with this Ulthuan Grey for that. And then also it will be for the fleur-de-lis on her backpack here. Right, so first pass is done on the base coating for my white bits, and I'm just going to come in and neaten up a few bits with the Mephiston Red. I'm also going to use the Mephiston Red on part of the gun casing. So now this probably isn't traditional for sisters, but I quite like the red on the weapons. Now that I've done all this, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wash the whole model with Nuln oil, and this is going to be my shade layer. So I'm not going to go mad with it. It's literally going to go on, and I'm going to make sure that I push it around so that there's not masses lying everywhere. But that is going to be my shade for all of these colours and to bring them together, and then I will start highlighting up from there. Now that the wash has dried, you can see that it's dulled everything down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now just going to go over the red primarily with the Mephiston red again. I'm then going to just highlight up the white bits, and I'm going to add in the brass colour that I wanted to add in. Now I'm going to paint the grenade Dark Angel's green to begin with, and then I'm going to highlight that up with successive shades of lighter greens. So I'm highlighting up, and I'm going to try and leave as much of the dark in the recesses as possible. And just basically paint raised areas just to bring the life back into this. So I've highlighted up the red, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some Evil Sun Scarlet now to add in a brighter red highlight. And that will obviously be on the more extreme raised edges of her robe. But it will also be, I'll also try and edge. I'm not going to highlight up her under sleeves any further, but I will obviously do things like the edges of her vestments here and along these edges and along the edges on the bottom of her robe, and then obviously highlight up the raised lines on her. So I've used the Evil Sun's Scarlet to highlight up on the vestments for my Canoness. That's as far as I'm going to take it with her in that respect. I'm going to paint in some brass detail now, which will be the hilt, the fleur-de-lis on her side armour bits, on her pelvis armour there, and I think that was it actually. No, the fleur-de-lis in the centre there as well. So I'm going to be using Rune Lord brass for that. And as I said, it's going to be the sword hilt here, and there's a fleur-de-lis which is slightly on the blade, so that's getting some brass, and then there's a fleur-de-lis at the end of the handle, and that's getting some as well. the fleur-de-lis, the centre of her breastplate, and then the fleur-de-lis that are on the side plates of her armour here. You may need to give this a couple of coats just to make sure it's given a nice even coverage. So I've highlighted up my gloves and I'm just going to continue that highlight with some dryad bark that's been mixed with some Mournfang brown, just as a final edge highlight, and sort of like on the fingers. Next up, I am going to highlight the white areas, and I'm going to do this straight up with a mix of, well, not a mix, but just a pure white, where's it gone? White scar. So right, so her grenade is going to get a quick coat of Caliban green, and then I will literally dry brush up the detail, the raised detail, and then silver the fly off lever on the grenade. Adds a bit of contrast on that. So she has one grenade just here, so that's painted green. Going to quickly dry brush part of the base. So I've painted the base with Mournfang brown and base coated the piece of ruin in Mechanica Standard Grey. I am going to give it a quick flick with a dry brush of Rust Grey and then Fenrisian Grey. So you don't really need a lot because it's only a small item. So that's that, and then Fenrisian Grey. And that's it. That's all I'm doing for the dry brushing on the pillar. So wash off your brush. Don't use the same brush that you've just washed for dry brushing because it will be too wet. Use another brush and get another piece of kitchen towel. Now for dry brushing the dirt, I've base coated in Mornfang Brown. The next colour I'm dry brushing on is Xandri Dust. And the reason I dry brushed the piece of ruin first was because it doesn't matter if dust gets onto, if the Xandri dust gets onto the model. And then, final highlight, of Wraithbone. Oops. Okay, so once I've painted my Canoness and glued her to the base, I will then see about where I can position any grass tufts that I think I might want to put on. Before that though, all my rims are black on my miniatures. So Abaddon Black is being used for the rim. I will put a second coat on that. So, back to the Canoness. The paint I'm going to use to just overbrush the pineapple grenade effect surface is essentially Deathcore Drab, and this should highlight, because if you look, hopefully you can just make out the grenade there, and with the frag grenades they have like a pineapple-y textured surface, so obviously when they explode they fragment, and the shrapnel is what causes the issue. What I'm going to do is use Deathcore Khaki to just almost kind of like a cross between overbrushing and dry brushing, just to pick out the detail on the surface of that grenade. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the fly-off lever on the grenade. Some people call it the spoon. So for those that don't know, when you pull the pin, there's a fly-off lever on a grenade ordinarily, and that comes off and it flips over a little striker, and that is what strikes the detonator, the timer for the fuse to detonate the grenade. So the fly-off lever here gets a silver handle like that. I'm also just going to use the bolt gun metal while I've got it here to just do some edging on some parts. Okay. Then I'm going to go back to the old reliable Mephiston Red to dot in her lenses on her helmet. Okay. The power sword is going to get a very thin coat of Drakenhof Nightshade. Like that. Okay, so I've mixed up a little bit of Dark Reaper and I'm going to use that to highlight the edges of the power armor, which obviously includes the power pack, and this will probably be the only highlight I do on the armor. So I have finished her off. Unfortunately, the record function didn't work properly on my iPhone, which is what I record most of my videos on. So the final little bits that I did was just to highlight up the sword using Runefang Steel, and then just do a few little highlights on her other metallic places that I felt warranted it, especially her plasma pistol. And to be quite honest, this is as far as I'm going to take her. I may revisit her to put some decals on at a later stage, but for now I'm happy leaving her as a blank. Although she's for our martyred lady within the sisters, I'm not going to put on any iconography for that particular section. Alright, hopefully you'll join me in the next one. Take care. Bye.